What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode number 1. We're going to kick things off with a bang and talk about explosions. So a few months back, I was interviewed on a podcast talking about sound design and how I got into sound design. And during that interview, the guy interviewing me put me on the spot and he goes, okay, tell me right now, if I were to ask you to create an explosion sound, what would you do? And so we started talking about some of the different elements that go into explosions. And one of my go-tos as a sound designer is finding something very, very transient and loud and metallic. And for me, that's a dumpster. So one of the things that I like to do is when creating explosions, I'll hit the side of the dumpster, I'll throw things in it, I'll slam the lid, just to get some really loud, kind of reverberant, transient sounds. And we don't want to just stop there. There's a lot of other stuff that we can throw into it. Being from Florida, we are the lightning center of the United States, so obviously we got a lot of thunder to work with. So I thought, why not combine the two and see what we can come up with. So a couple years ago, I was doing a game jam. And if you guys don't know what game jams are, they're a ton of fun. You got 48 hours to try and put together as much of a video game as you can. And I like to go in as a sound designer and just kind of see what I can do for the games. But when I did this a couple years ago, I actually already ended up with several dumpster sounds. So I went ahead and pulled those in. And just to kind of give you guys an idea of what those sound like. So these are the types of sounds that I like to pull in for explosions. And I've got several different examples here. So let's go ahead and take a second and edit these out. All right, so now that we've got these clipped, we want to go through and try to find some really good sounds. Not every sound that we record is going to be usable. So we want to go through and just kind of listen to each individual sound and try to figure out which ones we would actually be able to use in our project. So out of that, we've got a few usable sounds. There was a lot of background noise in some of them, and some others were just the lid slamming. So we just wanted to get rid of those and get real solid dumpster hits. And so from here, what we're also going to do is I have so many thunder recordings living here in Florida. So I'm going to go ahead and pull in those thunder recordings as well. All right, so I've got some thunder sounds that I thought would be really good for what we're doing here. All right, so let's clip these up and start mixing them together. So when I clip out the thunder, I want to get rid of this kind of beginning tail. I want to get right up to that transient. And we're going to do the same thing with this one down here. And that'll allow us to let the dumpster hit be the initial kind of part of the explosion, and then using the thunder as the reverb for the explosion. And just see what we're working with for the beginning. Chances are this is gonna clip really heavily because we haven't done any mixing. But just to kind of give us a starting point. All right. So yeah, we went straight to the red on that one. So let's go ahead and maybe we don't use all these. Maybe we use half of them. But I just want to throw some sounds in here so that we can get started. Let's start mixing these out and just see where we're at. Okay, let's get rid of some of this roll off here. Still a bit much. There's a metal latch in one of these. That one. So I like the transient on that, but I hate that there's that little metal part in there. So let's see if we can't actually EQ this out. So we're going to put a low pass filter on it. And I want as much of the frequency as I can get without having that metal latch in there. So by itself, you can kind of hear it, but I think that's going to get covered up by the other sounds. So let's go ahead and leave it there for a second and see where we're at. All right. So what we're going to do so we can mix these is we're actually going to throw a master fader on here. That way when we're in our mix window, we can kind of see where we're at. All right, so we're almost there. I don't know how I feel about still some of the ring off of this thunder. So let's bring that in just a little bit more. All right. So I think, aside from a little bit of EQing on this one, this is definitely a great starting point. There's a couple other things that we can do to this to really beef it up. All right, so what I ended up doing is I routed everything to a reverb channel just to kind of draw it out a little bit. And I've also routed it to a plugin that I like to use to get a lot of low end. It's called MH Thump. And so as far as our reverb, I actually just did a preset, a basic small reverb, just a little bit to tie it all together. For MH Thump, again, I used another preset, but this is for the sub thump. So to kind of give you guys a little bit of an idea of what this plugin does. So I'm going to go ahead and just slam this to the top, just so you guys can can get the effect of it. And so what it does is it takes everything that's going through it, and it's kind of like a frequency analyzer, and then it adds the sub frequencies. We're going to pull that back down a little bit. Like I said, I did have a reverb on here as well. And you can tell that we're definitely clipping. So one thing I also did was I put a limiter here on our master fader, which kind of allows us to just smash. We're brick walling it is what we're doing. So we're getting a lot of that distortion in there without getting the actual clip. And I think that makes for a really solid explosion sound. But just to kind of give you guys an idea also of where we are in terms of frequency, we're definitely getting a lot of low end. And so we can play around with this, but I think that's actually a really great starting point for an explosion. You know, obviously you're going to have different size explosions, you know, whether it's going to be a hand grenade or a bomb or whatever, you know. But just about every action movie, every action video is going to have some sort of an explosion. So there you go. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. As a token of my appreciation, you'll be able to find the sounds that I create each week and a downloadable link in the description below. Feel free to download and use these sounds in whatever you see fit. They are completely royalty free. If you guys have any suggestions as to what you'd like to see in my videos, please feel free to drop a comment, or you can get a hold of me on any one of these social media sites. Until next time.